Now it's good morning to our parenting panel, Tracey, Dannielle Miller and Yvette in Vignando. Now the parents of an 8-year-old girl have been ordered by the courts to stop weighing their child after a fight over who made her obese. Can you believe this? The child weighs 43 kilos. Now the courts have banned weigh-ins, saying they're bad for her self-esteem. I mean, Danny, this seems pretty obvious. What are these parents doing?
Oh, they are buying into the ridiculous notions that the weight loss industry feeds us, that the size of their daughter is all that matters, not her well-being or her health. And I think it's incredibly sad. When I read that story, I just felt furious, actually, not just with the parents, but with our culture that's really fed us this ridiculous notion that size is everything. I said to Tracey, sort of, jokingly, they're not growing a pumpkin. They don't need to weigh this child in. I mean, it's incredibly sad, and it just makes me feel very concerned about her long-term sense of self and value.
I agree with you on that, but also I think I look at this story, Yvette, and I think of two people who are very angry with each other and deciding that they're going to nitpick on the child and see who's wrong with the child.
Right with you, and I can't add to what Danny said about the whole body image issue. That is spot on, and it's an obvious point to make, and she always makes the point better than me on those issues. And
She's the expert.
She is the expert, but on that other issue, those are two parents who are not thinking about what's in the best interest of their child, and that's a real issue in any kind of family law custody situation. And I'm not sure in this case exactly what's going on, because it's in the Federal Magistrates Court, not the Family Court. I'm not sure what the proceedings are about, but I am really sad to see that parents are not putting the best interests of their child first. They're putting their own interests, their own needs, their own desires, their own disputes before the interests of their child. And that's something we all need to constantly remember when we're in any kind of dispute with another adult, to try to remember to please put the best interests of the child first, including their self-esteem and growing up a happy, healthy child. It doesn't matter what size they are, as long as they're a healthy, happy child.
It's something we need to remind ourselves about in the last sort of few years, that when you create a human being together with somebody, even if we're not going to go on the same path for the rest of our lives, we still got to make sure that human's okay.
That's right, and yet they're using this 8-year-old's weight as a weapon in their custody battle. The mother probably is feeding the child too little, the father probably is feeding the child too much. They do the handovers at McDonald's when they do the custody handover, right?
Alrighty.
To put this into perspective, but the worst thing is, this child is probably emotionally eating secretly at night when the parents aren't looking, because she's distressed about the custody battle, so she's the one who's suffering.
Yeah, all right, well, look, let's move on. I think that's a pretty obvious one. Are kids born bad? Now, this is really interesting. A Sydney researcher believes that children who display a callous, unemotional temperament don't have to become aggressive and antisocial adults. His findings, presented at a world conference this week, claim nurture can beat nature. So in other words, warm and supportive parents can fight what's called these bad genes. Now, Yvette, you've studied this research. What type of child does he mean? I mean, is he taking, for example, those who we see like the Ted Bundys or this guy in Colorado that go and commit mass murders, or is he talking, or Denver or Colorado? Is that what he's talking about here?
No, he's actually not talking about that at all. It's easy to make the connection. This is research by Dr. David Hawes at Sydney University, and they did some research with Karatani, and they looked at some children who have what's called broadly callous and unemotional traits. So these are children that don't show remorse.
Pull wings off flies.
They can be quite callous, unemotional, low levels of empathy, that kind of thing, sometimes quite aggressive, and they use that aggression almost as a social skill. And there is usually a genetic component to that. However, what his research has shown is that if you use a very warm, supportive parenting style, not a punitive style, because in fact that backfires with those children, eye contact, lots of touch and affection, you can actually have a massive impact on those children's social and emotional skills. And Dr. Hawes has actually specifically asked me to say that there is no connection between those kinds of callous, unemotional children and adults who do mass shootings, mass murder. In fact, the psychological profile of people who do mass murders is usually someone who hasn't shown signs of violence in the past. It's unusual for that to be in their profile. They're usually loners, etc.
Certainly that was the case this weekend.
So yes, there's no connection between his research and any suggestion that a child like that will go on to become a mass murderer. None at all.
But Trace, it's nice to know that maybe that all this good parenting can influence the kid's outcome. Who would have thunk it?
That's it. You've hit the nail on the head. There was research by Harvard University last year that found the same same thing, especially about this eye contact factor. And what I thought was how heartbreaking for a parent to have a child like this, to be told, look, just keep loving them, eventually it will change. At least this gives hope to these parents that one day their child might not be as dysfunctional.
And it's not terribly dysfunctional. I mean, some toddlers need to be taught empathy. They just do, don't they, Danny?
The key thing that struck me was we need to be more supportive of parents and less judgmental, because can you imagine having a child that is very difficult, is very challenging, doesn't seem to want to love, doesn't seem to want to connect? Of course,
we don't even know if they're on the spectrum, if there's some sort of learning disability going on.
Of course, our first instinct as parents, you know, is just to try and love. But if that's very difficult, then we will start to withdraw. We need to be more supportive of parents and more understanding that we, as a community, need to step in. I mean, there's no sense of village anymore. We're leaving people to struggle in isolation. There aren't support structures, and I think it's heartbreaking.
So true. Ladies, thank you so much today. Yvette, that was great to bring that in. I thought that was a really interesting study. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Coming up,